This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Well, hello and welcome back to the Research Talks podcast here from Stockbox with Alan Green at the end of a week when it's actually been really chilly. I don't know what it's been like for you, Alan. I know we always talk about the weather, typical Brits that we are, but it's been cold, certainly for me this week.
It's been the same here, Mark. I mean, yesterday was a beautiful day. I mean, it really was, cloudless blue sky. And then we took the dog out in the afternoon for a walk along the seafront and all of a sudden clouds come in and cold wind blows, and it really was. It was single figures. It was freezing cold. We've got cloudy day today. It looks like it's going to rain, but it's sort of April showers, but we're not there yet. And I think there's a lot of speculation. I think we're going to have this cold weather going through April, possibly into May, and then, like it did last year, it'll suddenly get hot in June, and we'll have one of those scorching summers.
Yeah, indeed. Well, bring it on.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about some stocks then. On a week that, I don't know. I wouldn't say much has really happened this week generally. I mean, gold has kind of steadied. It's pulled back from 2,400, but it's kind of been steady, I think, for the most part of the week. We've still got the geopolitical issues going on that are causing gyrations up and down. But I don't know. Anything standing out for you before we just jump into the stocks this week? Or it's been a fairly mundane week.
It's been fairly mundane, but one eye on copper, of course. Start of or the end of March. There's an article in mining.com. Copper's heading for $10,000 a ton, which I think, given the supply squeeze, given the shortage, and the fact that in technology or clean technology and EV technology today, copper makes up much more of each unit per se as it would have done in older technology. Certainly with the EV, for instance, 23 kilograms of copper in a conventional internal combustion vehicle, 85 kilograms of copper in an EV. So there's each unit demands more material than previously. So supply needs to increase. If there's a supply squeeze, which there is now, the price is going to go through the roof. So everyone's saying $10,000 a ton.
Well, yeah, indeed. And isn't the Bitcoin halving today? Or just thinking on that, actually, that slipped my mind, but I think that's very...
It's very close. We were talking to David Lenegas.
17 hours. There we go. I've got the countdown there. So
17 hours, right? So it is. Goodness me. So a massive weekend in the crypto space.
Yeah,
so
potentially a massive weekend in the crypto space. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to see a lot of crypto stocks, respond to the halving on Monday.
Indeed. Yeah. And of course, the main indices pulling back a little bit overnight on some geopolitical issues there, but reading some comments this morning, the bottom that's potentially set the local bottom for now. So we'll see. Maybe. We'll see. But yeah, with that halving coming up, that's definitely going to be getting interesting over on the Bitcoin side of things. And but anyway, we're not talking about that today. We're going to talk purely exploration today with VVV Resources, Neo Energy Metals, of course uranium as well, very hot, and Panther Metals. So who are we taking first, Alan?
Well, let's start with VVV Resources.
Sure.
A lot of people might say, well, why start with this? Because nothing's happened yet. Well, it has started to happen this week. So this is the stock is also very difficult to trade, and I will declare a position here at the outset. But the company has a market capitalization currently of 709,000, although that would increase slightly with some shares that were issued yesterday to the management team. But the company last year acquired the Mitterberg copper project in the Eastern Alps in Austria. Now, this is 60 kilometers south of Salzburg. And Mitterberg comprises of 198 contiguous exploration licenses over some 90 square kilometers. And these are valid now to the end of 2027. But the area historically has been mined for well, I think over 1,000 years. There's evidence of very early workings deep in the mountains there. But mining took place between the mid 1800s through to the mid 1970s, where when the mines they were closed due to low copper prices. Some 200,000 tons of copper were extracted there, and the area still is, although the restrictions in Austria are fairly strict in regard to mining, the Eastern Alps is very much regarded as a brownfield site due to all of the activity that's taken there previously. So the work that's taken place there recently, a detailed technical report was prepared by geologist Reinhard Wagner, and he's undertaking concessionary work on behalf of VVV to keep the concessions there in good standing. There's a private Austrian company run by a gentleman called Liam Hardy that operates 4 projects nearby, and they have been sampling and testing the area, and have produced some good samples. 5.1% copper taken from Aston Tofern target, 3.7% copper from the Frauenkogel target, and 25 of 62 samples were all in excess of 0.5% copper. So there is estimated currently at Mitterberg to be, and this is not, I stress, it's not a JORC research estimate, but there's an initial 45,000 tons of copper calculated, at well, what it was calculated at the time at $8,000 per ton. But as we're seeing now, of course, copper has busted through $9,000 a ton and is up to possibly on its way to $10,000. So that's a initial value there of some $400 million. But of course, at this early stage, you can't really attribute a valuation at that level to the target. So what is required, of course, is the team needs to get on the ground there, undertake some work, and progress the asset. Now, VVV also has an asset in Australia too, in Western Australia, called the Shangri-La project. This is a small area in Western Australia, not that far, I believe, from the area that where First Development Resources are located. But historical assays there from the sampling that was undertaken here a few years ago: 5.3% copper, 9.5% lead, 5% zinc, 22 grams per ton gold, and 522 grams per ton silver. So there's an asset there with some value. But the actual piece of land is quite small, so it's my belief, but so the company won't confirm this. It's my belief that this will eventually be farmed off. So back to Mitterberg. Now, on Wednesday this week, VVV announced it had appointed Ben Hill as a non-exec director to the company. Now, Ben Hill is formerly of RAB Capital. And he also has worked with a company called the Growth Stage, and in each case raising money to help to provide growth capital and institutional investors to fund and finance projects. As part of his last role, he sat on the board of 20 private equity structures as a non-exec director or an alternate, but Ben has come in, Ben has come in to provide a funding package for the company to help to develop the project and fast track the project. Now, also on the board we have Jim Williams, and Jim is a mining engineer, is a mining veteran. He probably won't mind me saying this, of many years. He's chairman, of course. He's also co-founder and ex-chief executive of Ariane Silver Corporation back in the noughties. Also a director previously at Kilo Gold Mines, TSX listed. Also Grand Partage Resources, again TSX listed, and also Sterling Silver Mines in the USA. So many years experience as a geologist, and also Jim is Jim has often been called in as an expert witness on technical details concerning mines and projects too. So very experienced in that field. So the team really are poised to take VVV forward. Now, I said initially on the valuation front, I mean the shares have a mid price of 10.5p, so about 730,000 market cap. So there is no value attributed to any upside from Mitterberg at all. So I think now the shares, there's been very little trading volume over the past year, but the shares I think are now poised to spring into life once we hear further from Ben Hill and the funding package that he can bring into the company. But it does provide an opportunity for members or investors to come in and invest into the company, take a punt at this stage, because obviously the price of copper, the copper's importance, as a metal for the new clean tech and EV generation. We've all heard so much about that recently, but this I think is a company that has no premium yet in the share price to reflect that. So that's VVV.
That's VVV. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Alan. So, yeah, we can just await some news coming from VVV. Then it sounds like they're probably maybe a pivotal moment.
Yeah, well. I think it's at that point where all the pieces start to come together, and you start to see some activity, and the stage is set, I think, to move Mitterberg on. But also, as I say, I mentioned the company Eco Metal, run by Liam Hardy. They're doing good work in a region that's adjacent to the Mitterberg project. But also, the wider picture. Let's look at what's happening in Europe right now. Carl Friel floated European Green Transition a few weeks ago, and the company floated 10p. It's now sitting at 12.5p. And they have a rare earths project in Sweden. They have projects in Saxony in Germany, and also a graphite project further north in Sweden too. So clean energy metals are what it's all about. Copper is hugely important. It's a hugely important constituent of that. And I think with the work that's taking place in Europe, the potential supply hubs that are springing up all over Europe, it's going to be, for companies like VVV, there's a real opportunity given where the copper price is right now.
Indeed. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you, Alan, for that. So, Neo Energy Metals next.
Neo Energy Metals. Now we spoke, of course, about Neo Energy Metals recently. The company was set up late last year. It was a cash shell, and it completed an RTO 50% of Desert Star Trading, which is the owner of the Henkries uranium project in South Africa's Northern Cape. Now, this is a long-standing project. It was owned by Anglo American, of course, in the 70s and 80s. And Anglo American undertook a lot of detailed evaluation and assessment of the project at the time. But as often happens, you'll see that throughout history there are great projects, but of course it's entirely dependent on where the commodity price is at the time. And the commodity price can move 10%, and all of a sudden a dormant project can become economically viable. And that's just how the cycle of the commodity markets moves and changes the landscape. So for Henkries, it's suddenly come of age because, of course, the uranium price is burgeoning. And the reasons for that are well known. There's a fragile supply chain. Despite having gone around in circles looking for sources of clean energy, there is no doubt that nuclear power, powered by uranium, is a clean, safe, and reliable energy source. And we've spoken before, Mark, about the work that companies like BAE Systems and others are doing to produce these pocket-sized reactors, which can go and empower a small town. And that's well underway. So there's this huge development pipeline. We're going back to nuclear power, but the uranium pipeline has to double to avoid a supply squeeze, which is on the horizon already. And of course, there are so many other applications for uranium too. The nuclear isotopes are used in medical and defense applications, as well as, of course, nuclear power. So with Henkery's, it's always had this history, and when it came into Neo Energy Metals last year, of course, the share price at that point was a lot higher, and I think it's been unfortunate for the group. The shares sort of hit the market initially at 0.8p, and it's come back quite some way, but we're currently trading at 0.5p, which gives the company a market capitalization of 7.5 million. Which doesn't really in any way reflect the value or also how far advanced the project is. So in November last year, they raised 4.9 million gross at subscription. Sorry, the subscription is at 1.25p, not 0.8p, and it came to market with a market cap of 15 million. And of course, throughout that process, the company also raised a further 500,000 from retail investors. Bought in Quinton van der Berg, the South African billionaire, as a non-exec director, and as part of that, 3.5 million was invested by his company Q Global into Neo Energy Metals. So the board that we put together, of course, we were speaking earlier, Mark, sort of Jason Brewer is there as chairman, and Jason, of course, did that fantastic job with the Marula mining last year, where the company went literally ballistic. So on the back of that, he's moved into other companies, both as a consultant and chairman. Sean Heathcote, of course, is the chief executive. He's 30 years experience in the business. Worked for BHP, also worked for Anglo American, and numerous major projects across Africa. So he may well have been familiar with Henkery's prior to bringing it into Neo Energy Metals. Then, of course, Jacqueline Machai, who's an non-exec director, oversees the Githoni Machai, and she's also director of Mayflower Capital. James Longley, non-exec director, Charles Tatton, non-exec director as well, and also Bongoni Razia, who's a non-exec director, and is also a director of a liquid petroleum gas firm, Petrogas, in South Africa. So throughout the development of the project, a number of exploration discoveries have been made. It's established that the project is low cost. It's the uranium ore is very shallow. There's already a good infrastructure in place due to the previous works that were undertaken there, and importantly, strategically, from a logistical standpoint, it's located some just 30 kilometers from the Blesberg lithium project, which of course is the flagship project for Marula mining. So access. Getting people on the ground there is very easy indeed. There are across the project, there are a number of prospective uranium channels extending for some 37 kilometers on the license area, and within these paleochannel sediments, mineralization is about 5 to 8 meters down, which is absolutely nothing at all. So you can almost dig it up with a tractor and hoe. Anglo American completed a pre-feasibility study following mining of just over 200 pits, and but the sampling and test work stopped after the uranium market collapse in 1979. But of course, with all that work done previously, there's a tremendous amount of data to go on and to develop. Recent developments, of course. I mentioned Jason coming in as executive chairman, Jason Brewer, of course. The company also listed on the AZX or the A2X, which is the South Africa's independent stock exchange. And then early this week, a company called Erudite Strategies, based in Pretoria, were appointed to effectively update the PFS. The actual terminology in the announcements that they've been appointed to update the capex and opex estimates. In other words, they're doing a reassessment of the project to ultimately establish a new mineral resource estimate, and that mineral resource estimate could well increase. To give you a comparison, if you look at Cadence Minerals' iron ore project in Amapa, Brazil, also previously owned by Anglo American, who attributed a value of some $600 million in 2012. So when Cadence and the team came in, they undertook a renewed they undertook a PFS and a DFS, which is about to get underway, and that has established an increase in the mineral resource estimate for the iron ore at the project. So in the same way, I think we can expect to see Erudite Strategies conduct similar work and hopefully obtain through those paleo channels, which have yet to be explored, that they should be able to establish an increase on the existing estimate for the region. The important thing is with Henkries, because the infrastructure is already in place, it's one of the few uranium projects in the world that can actually commence production in the relative near term. And of course, that will involve some updating of infrastructure, but pretty much everything is in place. The access to the projects well established, routes to market are well established, and I think we've already seen what Jason has done with Marula Mining or Shuka Minerals too, with Quinton Vanderberg sort of on the team as an investor back in the project. This can move very quickly indeed, and that's what this management team does very well. They actually kick projects into life and get them advanced very, very quickly indeed. So given the fact that the share price has steadily slipped since the IPO last year, there will be a turning point. And I think with Jason coming in as chairman, once we start to get some initial reports back from Erudite Strategies about what they're finding there, and work on the ground from the team, I think I think we're looking now at a floor in the share price and a possible turning point for the company in the coming months.
Well, I think you're right. Given that Jason's now taken that chairman role there, I think one thing we can definitely be assured of is things will start to move, and Jason will be appearing quite a lot more, telling that story. I was at the IPO back in November, and it has been a little bit quiet there. And I did say that to Jason on the last interview I did, and he said, "Yeah, I acknowledge that, but now we're going to really get motoring." So yeah, that updated BFS, which would be great to see. All that work that was done by Anglo, so much money put into that. I seem to think it was 30 million or something that was put into that. But as you say, uranium prices at the time just not making it feasible. So they just got to update that with modern costs and taking into account the uranium pricing at the moment. And I think that's due out fairly swiftly. I think he almost said sort of 4 to 5 weeks. So I don't think we have long to wait to see that. So that's obviously a huge, and I mean, great. How long do we have to wait normally for a company to go through PFS, DFS, BFS? It takes a long time, but they're going to basically update the BFS that's already there with a little bit of work. And wanting also to increase that resource as well. I think to 1 million, focusing to get it to £1 million. And I think he said as well, making a decision towards the end of the year, as like a decision to mine sort of thing, cash flow during 2025. So I mean, great, bring it on, Jason. Let's see. I'm eager to see that BFS in a few weeks' time.
Well, this is the exciting thing when Jason gets involved with a company like this, and you look at where the project is located geographically, 30 kilometers from Blesberg. There's already a big infrastructure and team on the ground there. So it's very the overlap, the optimization of logistics, the economies of scale with having sets of resources on the ground at the same time. This is an infrastructure that is ready to recommission, and I think it's going to be really exciting to see what the company can do in the next few weeks. And as you say, generally speaking, when you're looking at recommissioning a project like this, as we're seeing with the mapper, it does take time. You've got to go through the preliminary economic assessment, then the pre-feasibility study, and then the DFS, the definitive feasibility study that delivers all of the costs, the costs on infrastructure, the costs on shipping to port, to ship to market, and all the rest of it. And of course, while this is happening, hopefully the commodities price keeps on going up, which makes it even more profitable. But as we have seen before, sometimes the market can change, and all of a sudden, you're in a situation where you've invested all this money, and it becomes uneconomical, and it's just the fortunes and some of the risks of investing into mining.
It's just a fortune, some of the risks. Yeah, it's just the way it is. But I mean, I did say, I think, did I say a minute ago, production in sort of 2025? I think just checking that it's going to be making a decision by the end of this year and production within 2. So, that's still pretty swift.
Yes,
and
it is. Yeah.
I know we talked about that Forum Energy Metals not so long ago, and I mentioned the special feature I did with Rebecca Hunter. We really talked about the uranium market, and there's really been 2 good bull markets on uranium, and this is the third one is well underway. So looking at past charts, the spike should be a lot higher on the third one going forward. So I think uranium is going to be a good bet for the short term. Of course, as I say, not without risk, but looking at where things are going and the demand for uranium and the fact it's entering another bull cycle, then that risk is perhaps slightly mitigated there.
I think so. Yeah. And I think also, if you've got the right people in place too, and I think Jason and Quinton have proved themselves, beyond any shadow of a doubt. If they get involved with the company, there's every reason to be excited, because, when you go into something like this, and you've got a reputation to sustain in the marketplace, you have to conduct some pretty extensive due diligence. So Jason will not have got involved with this project. Quinton will not have got involved in this project unless they were pretty certain of the outcome. And that's, investors should get very excited about that.
Yeah, indeed. Well, let's finish off with Panther Metals then, Alan.
Yeah, well, I'm delighted for Darren Hazelwood. Of course, we both know Darren Hazelwood well, Mark, but he was, I think Darren has had, challenges with the market over the past year, and I know often when I've seen him at shows, he just shakes his head when I talk to him about the state of the market. But actually now the market is finally rewarding Panther shareholders with some good positive movement, and I'm looking at the chart here for the past year. And we're seeing, from a chartist standpoint, we've seen a real breakout over the past month or so. And the shares, of course, now trading at 4.46p. The company has a market cap of just over 4 million. And that's, of course, off lows of around 2.5p. And indeed, we saw the shares hit the low of 2.5p in November last year. Very briefly dropped to 2.75p in March before powering ahead, and on the back of some very strong developments indeed. So Panther, of course, they hold a number of exploration licenses in Canada. They acquired the Abonga Greenstone Belt projects in July 2021. They've identified 5 prospective primary targets there: Wishbone, Awkward, Survey, Ottertooth, and Silver Rim. They also have the Dotted Lake project, sited some 16 kilometers from Barrick Gold's Hemlo Gold Mine, and work is undertaken there. That's about 37 square kilometers. The Manitou Lakes project in Thunder Bay, Ontario. And then, of course, they have 2 companies in which they have a stake, which are operating independently. They hold 20% of Fulcrum Metals PLC. And of course, I interviewed Ryan the other week, and Fulcrum have had a really strong year to date and are evolving very successfully as a company that is also working with pioneering mining and metallurgical technologies, also particularly with extract, that they're developing a relationship with there. They have Fulcrum have a number of gold tailings projects. They recently bought a second gold tailings project. So their focus is very much on cash flow. And of course, with that increase in share price, the 20% stake held by Panther Metals has increased as well. Panther also has a 2% net smelter return agreement on the Big Bear project, which is also owned by Fulcrum too. So if that comes to fruition, then of course there'll be extra cash there. And they also hold warrants in Fulcrum Metals at 17.5 and 26.25 pence. They also have a 23.5% stake in Panther Metals Australia, which is, of course, listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. And that's through Panther Metals. There's the Coglia Cobalt project in southern Australia, and also several other projects at an early stage. So again, any upside there will be a driver of the Panther share price. But recently, the focus has been very much on developing Abonga, and there are two developments, really important developments of note. In the first quarter of the year. So at the start of April, the company announced it had submitted an exploration permit to undertake additional drilling after it had intersected graphite mineralization at the company's at the Awkward prospect at Abonga, and this of course is in the Abonga Greenstone Belt. So the exploration permit there, it covers 35 single mining claims, and the graphic mineralization that was encountered there was something like 2.25% over 27.5 meters total graphitic carbon, and the company has applied to carry on with the exploration, because this is a huge area. It's a massive belt, and I know Darren's plans are very much to work and develop the prospects that they have there, and then possibly look further down the road and partner with some of the bigger operators in the area. And you've got Agnico Eagle and so many other operators with producing mines in the region there. So a really big step forward, and a lot of support also from the government of Ontario. The Ontario government had a vision to create this circular provincial economy. Critical minerals are, of course, at the heart of that, and with graphite, of course, being a central component to clean technology, both batteries and also in its numerous other applications too. If Darren and the team can fast track the work that they're doing on the project there, then it's they'll have a really exciting project to develop and build, and possibly partner with other people further down the road. And of course, with graphite, the wider picture, we're seeing. We spoke last week, of course, Mark, about Blencowe Resources and the Orem Cross project in Uganda. And Blencowe have secured $5 million in funding from the USDFC, and that's the US Development Finance Corporation, which is an arm of the US government. And the US government are anxious to secure supply of these of new energy or clean energy minerals going forward. So when a project is that far down the road, they will provide financing. So Darren and the team strategically have made another move to really bring the Awkward project forward, with the appointment of Melissa Sanderson, both as strategic advisor for government relations, and also to pioneer and promote the ESG, ethical, sustainable growth, and cultural integration with the local population there. And Melanie, or Mel Sanderson, as it were, she's Darren's words, she's a global ESG powerhouse with the political connections and business acumen to develop diplomatic connections, and I would guess ultimately to perhaps strike up a relationship with something like the USDFC to provide further financing. And of course, Darren will laugh at this. He's a big Ipswich Town fan, or he's a tractor boy, should I say. So he's used football parlance to describe the appointment. In sporting parlance, bringing Melanie Sampson into the company is the equivalent of Accrington Stanley signing Lionel Messi, which I thought was a wonderful comparison. So this is really important strategically for Panther, and I think when we're now seeing the share price finally respond to these developments. But I believe Darren and the team are going to focus on Awkward and fast track that as their key exploration project, and of course, looking at what Fulcrum Metals are doing, and also Panther Australia. Once those projects continue to progress, then that will further reflect and provide drivers for the Panther share price. So actually, Panther now offers a very rounded investment proposition. I think you've got good projects that Panther are developing on their own, and then you've got these investments that Panther has in Fulcrum and Panther Australia, which will also yield dividends in the medium and longer term.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Alan. And this indeed, looking forward to seeing how Panther go about this year's field season, particularly with the renewed interest there in the graphite potential. So thank you very much, Alan, for talking to us about VVV, Neo Energy Metals and Panther Metals. Have a good weekend, and let's speak next week.
Thank you, Mark. You too.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programmes at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.